Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Nëïgsëndöïg Cöcülës show. My name is Nëïgsëndöïg Cöcülës, the namesake for this here podcast. I set up a new AI workflow. This is one that will be designed to help me with my content creation workflow. Now, consider that I am on Artix Linux. Some things are going to be different. Part of this has to do with applications that are run locally, though I will be using web search functionality that does not require digital ID. I've been ragging on digital ID since at the very least episode 35. Now, stay tuned for this. We have a fairly straightforward setup. This is why this episode is probably going to be shorter. The software that will be used for it, I will go for first. LM Studio is used for the server, so I can run a customized Qwen 3.5 9 billion parameter uncensored GGUF model. The model I am using is from HowCS. I also have a version of Qwen 3, I believe. In fact, let me check that right now. I should have the model ready to go. Qwen 3.54 billion, Qwen 3.59 billion, Qwen 3.4 billion. This one is Heretic. The other two are HowCS, Qwen 3.54 billion, and Qwen 3.59 billion. And I also have 5.4 mini. Apparently, that one in particular is designed for the purposes of some coding stuff and agent stuff. And then for embeddings, I'm using MXBAI Embed Large V1 F16. So that's what I'm going to be running here. For the front end, so I can do a lot of prompts, that is where anything LLM comes into play. Now, I do in fact also use DuckDuckGo's AI service that uses several models, all anonymized. I use the GPT models on there without actually using OpenAI's garbage. Now, this is how I wrote the prompts in particular. I used the framework known as role, objective, scenario, expected solution, and steps. This is called roses. But I have also been using context, role, interview, task, also known as crit. Crit, I'm not too familiar with. This was something from Jeff Woods in his book, The AI-Driven Leader. And it's a book from Simon & Schuster. Sorry, Jack Spirko, I cannot trust this guy. He goes through a horrible, discriminatory publisher. I can't really trust it. I did take crit though. Regardless, Roses is from a HubSpot deal I was able to snag for free for what they do with AI prompting and usage tools that they utilize on a regular basis. I run them through the DuckDuckGo AI to have it check the prompts, making sure they're good enough for the purposes they need to perform. I don't use a prompting framework for that though. Regardless, there are a lot of things that we can use that are local first. Code is a good example of this. I don't know if it's possible for me to run Code at the moment because it kind of acts weird on Artix. I tried it. Regardless, I will consider the whole thing on AI being this. There are tons of gatekeepers who want to keep their art alive, yes. However, those who do not use AI in whatever they're doing, they're actually slower in performance than those who do use it. Consider myself. I am quite procrastinate as a result of lowered work and work ethic from unforeseen circumstances. I can perform well in some cases when the pressure is on. Those who are afraid of AI will be used by it rather than those who aren't. I am in the latter camp, considering that nobody should be afraid of using a local AI setup responsibly. And it's getting easier to do. Everyone should do this. Even you anti-AI people, Just try to prompt. Just learn how to prompt. It's not that hard. Learn how to get a model that is run for your machine. FitMyLLM.com is a very good resource to do that, by the way. Regardless, I now have the roles. This, in particular, is where I'm going to get into it. I have two parts to this. The first part, well, that was the software that I use. The second part are going to be the roles. Firstly, we have a 5-role setup, all for long-form content specialization. They are all compartmentalized. Firstly, I have a researcher. This is designed to create content strategies for Cöcülës Nation. And this will find ways to help the channel grow organically. I do not want to be deceptive, greedy, and an evil corporatist after all, nor do I want to be bought out by any, and I mean any, venture capital firm. Private equity is also a no-go. If this happens, I will shut down Cöcülës Media. I'm not joking. If I do somehow get compromised, blackmailed, or otherwise coerced into selling Cöcülës Media, so then we can see the control from that private equity firm, I would rather shut down Cöcülës Media if there's a hostile takeover than have to actually accept the slop that I will be fed. I have this researcher set up to provide a memo identifying the content opportunities, ranking them by value, and then giving a plan for what to do next. I have tons of guardrails set up, considering that I want this AI to perform well. And I set the LLM temperature to 0.5 due to how I wrote the prompt using AI. Secondly, we have a content strategy LLM, or rather, a workspace. I have 5 workspaces in editing LLM. The second is the content strategy. I will place the research notes into content strategy. This will turn a topic into a high-quality, long-form strategy using the same realism and honesty standards, and that's because I don't want to be deceitful. I will not, under any circumstances, do short-form content. I produced one, and I mean one piece of short-form content. That's on Cöcülës Nation. One piece. That's it. And it was said the video was fake. No, it wasn't. I came up with this idea. That video had about 400 views the last time I checked it. Regardless, the temp was set to 0.7 as a result of how it was written. Third will be the scriptwriter. Now, after the content strategy is done, then I will put it into the script writing workspace. This is designed for narration that will feel like a Homo sapien wrote it. It's designed to be accurate, engaging, well-paced, and optimized for long-form viewers. You should see a pattern here. I talked about this earlier. Short-form content scientifically is proven to rot your brain. If your brain is rotted and you can't watch long-form content, this is the reason why. Point blank, carte blanche. Second to last today will be the show notes writer workspace. That's exactly what this is. And I have the models set up for that depending on what this has to be. 0.3 is the temperature for the LLM as a result. And then finally, a release planner. I made this one pretty advanced. Now, I can go over this one on Wavelake because of the planning method I use to release any big projects. My music on this channel was released using this specific planning tool. At the start of this podcast, was also released. January 8th, 2025 is when I started this podcast, by the way. So in November of 2024, that was when I went ahead and produced a pilot episode. It was a 3-minute pilot episode that basically explained exactly what I am doing for this podcast. Well, the planning method I use also ended up being pulled off with this podcast. That's why I started it when I did. Now, it is designed to help me create a release plan for any videos. I have it specifically on Cöcülës Nation. I could do this for any channel with some tweaking. This will be tried out for future videos on Cöcülës Nation specifically, ones that are not usually on every Thursday. I think this was mentioned already. But regardless, I am out of time for today's episode. Each and every episode will release Wednesday afternoons, if there aren't any scheduling conflicts, at 4 p.m. Pacific Time. You can listen to the podcast on YouTube, or Wavelake, or any Podcast 2.0 player. If you use something like Pocket Casts, or Spotify, Apple Podcasts, any other podcast player that doesn't support searching for Podcast 2.0 podcasts like this one, just copy the RSS feed YouTube side and paste that into your podcast player of choice. There, you will be able to actually listen to this podcast on the go. That said, I am out of time for today's episode. Thank you, and good night.